Like, you guys went pretty quickly into like the $1 million market, and that scares the crap out of me. Like, it's just a different mindset, I guess. Is this too loud?
Not at all.
It's good.
It's rather soothing.
Okay, right on. I'll give a bit of an intro to you. So this is Brett Finnie from Outline Homes. And I wanted to, well, I actually met Brett through James Bailey. So shout out to James Bailey. Brixton Flips used to go by Indiana James. I called him Indiana James for like the longest time. Didn't even know his real name. Met up with him just because on Instagram I saw him doing like just such cool stuff with the homes that he was flipping. And he just seemed to have like a passion for what he was doing. It wasn't all about money. Obviously, like, you guys need to make money flipping houses or else you can't do this for very long. You need to provide for your family. Same with me. Yeah, we need to provide, but at the same time, I saw just a lot of people going out there flipping homes that they're, I don't want to say like conning people, but they're buying a house and then doing the minimal things to a home to try and almost trick someone into thinking that it's worth so much more. It's like there are certain things when I'm flipping a home that you have to do to sell the product. Like you can't spend $5,000 on each light fixture. But at the same time, I want to put out something different, something cool, repurpose a place. Like, I like the art of flipping. I think it is a true art. So when I met James, I saw his stuff online. I was like, I got to meet you. Like, you're just such a talented dude. Yeah. Doing really cool designs and work from there. And he's like, have you met the MothaFlippas? Like, they're wicked dudes. Like, I was like, I've seen them on Instagram, which I did. I saw your guys' stuff. You guys have a cool following. When I talk to other people who are in the flip world, like, they know you guys. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So James, eventually we had a meetup at a house, and then I saw your current project in Pleasant View, which blew my mind.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm doing flips in Edmonton. I've done, every different strategy in the book. I've done, big flips, quick flips, whatever. You guys seem to have your niche. And when I saw the product that you guys are doing, like, you're doing things that I wouldn't have even thought of. So, like, blowing the roof off a place and putting up vaulted ceilings and like just some really crazy stuff. So, Brett reached out to me after the last podcast, I guess, and said, hey, I think what you're doing is really cool. And I was like, okay, well, let's chat further about flips because you guys are doing really cool stuff in Edmonton. And I just kind of want to hear a bit of your background story and what you think of flipping. If someone wants to get into flipping, the myths behind it, the dollars behind it, and kind of where you're going with it all. So thanks for meeting up with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me in this morning. So you and I met for lunch like a month ago, maybe longer. Yeah. But we kind of dove into our backgrounds, and just for people who are listening, my background is I went to school for earth sciences, and I worked in that industry for 10 years. But while I was there, my wife and I purchased an extremely old home, 1922. So that house turns 100 years old next year.
There we go.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It's in the Highlands.
The Highlands.
Yeah. So right by the golf course there in Edmonton.
Yeah.
So bought that, and then knew absolutely nothing about renovations, but I knew I wanted to, turn that house into something beautiful. And, like, you see a lot of homes, getting torn down, and I just took it upon myself to renovate the house, to make it, livable, and to raise a family in it, to create memories in it. So I picked away at that for about 2 years, and then finished it. And then
this is while you're going to school?
This was, no, this is while I was still working. I was working at an engineering firm at that point. And then once I was done that house, I moved into a project management position, and I did that. And so that job combined with like, you know, my passion that I found renovating this old home, like they just gelled really well together. And so I actually got laid off from that job. And so I was like, well, what do I do now? I said, if I don't try this, if I don't follow my passion, I'm going to regret it. Like, I'm totally going to, like, this is an opportunity, right? There's always that thing in the back of your mind, like, you know, what if this, what if that? But I feel like, you know, like you and I are cut from like somewhat of the same cloth. I feel is like I've got a lot of confidence in myself and a lot of confidence in my ability. And I just know, like, I'll just figure it out. You know, you're just going to work it out. You'll make it work no matter what. Like, you don't have another option. So, you know, that's kind of my mentality going into new stuff. I did that first home after I got laid off. And it was such like a learning experience. And, you know, you think you renovate one house and then you're like, well, I did one, I can do another. Yeah. And then so once I got laid off, I was like, okay, like, let's find something. I want to try this again. So that deal did not go well, like monetarily, with some of the relationships we had, with some of the quality of work. But the value to me was in the learning. Like, I got paid no money on that job, but the amount of money I would have spent learning that is where I got the value. Yeah. You probably learned more than during that job than I guess like any kind of schooling would have taught. Absolutely. Like, that's not like a course that you can take. No, it definitely isn't. And so this is like what you touched on initially, is like the quality of stuff that we used wasn't the best. Like, it wasn't great because we were trying to reduce risk. Not that we wanted to try to sell, you know, someone a product that, you know, was faulty, but it was just like, we're not comfortable spending a lot of money on this stuff, so we have to cut costs. And so that was a huge, huge, huge lesson, like, for me. Is like, I will never, ever do that again. Like, you'll never sacrifice on quality? I will never, ever, ever sacrifice on quality ever again. Like you said, like, a lot of people come into it thinking like they can make a quick buck, and you can. But I guess, like you're saying, is that's probably going to happen once. But then from there, it's like, to repeat this, you're eventually going to get, like, the secret will be out, or like your name will be tarnished. You're going to get burnt. You're going to get burnt somewhere where, like, you just said, like, no two deals are the same. Like, you might hit a home run on that first house with that same strategy, but applying that strategy to your second house, you know, you could completely, you know, get burnt on that deal. So that's speaking from my experience anyways, is because, you know, we've been through quite a few houses now, and none of them are alike, which is part of the, like, the beauty of renovating and flipping houses, is like, it's always interesting, right? Like, how many times have you told people that you flipped houses and they're like, oh my goodness, that's my dream job? Like, all the time. And I'm just like, what an awesome job. I would love to do that. It's like, would you really? Yeah. I'm like, why don't you come by our project and, like, actually see what's involved, and then you can base your decision off that. Because, like you said, HGTV, it's so, like, I don't watch those shows, but from what I understand, like, the job is done, and, like, they just condense it into, like, a couple hours or something. Is that correct in that assumption? Yeah, it's just like, I mean, we could look at your Instagram profile too and say the same thing. Like, you see people put together reels, or they'll put together, like, videos of before and after. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but when I post something like that, I'm like, it took like 7 months to make one post. Like, okay, in 7 months I can make another before and after or something. Yeah. Like, for whatever house you're flipping, and people don't understand
that fully. So I think it is like the point of us meeting is, well, to get your name out there, my name out there in a way, but also to bring the reality of flipping. Like, we're on the job sites, like we're, I've done enough painting or hanging drywall or cutting out electrical plugs. Like,
yes,
it's hard work. There is money to be made, but there's also like so many things that you have to be careful of. And if people just go into it like willy-nilly, you might get burnt. You might lose your shorts. You might be working like all hours of the night. Like, you might be missing out on like certain events, or your weekends are gone. And like, the reality of this is it's really hard. But I wanted to bring back like that if you have a passion for that, if there's like there's an art to it, and if you're really creating something really cool, I'm sure you feel the same way, but like 100%. I want to make a ton of money at the end of a flip. That's great. But if I break even, but it's an awesome job, I still feel like I accomplished something. Like, that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You said you're relatively new to this game, and like you guys are growing rapidly. But like, you guys went pretty quickly into like the $1 million market. And that scares the crap out of me. Like, it's just a different mindset, I guess. Yeah. Like, a lot of our flips will usually put a basement suite in the home, because if something doesn't work out, it's like, that's my backup plan. That like, you have a great rental property.
Yeah.
And if you can have both, that's even better. Like, a cool looking rental property. Yeah. In my mind, it's like, yeah, that's fantastic. You guys are like, no, we're all in on this home in Pleasant View, and we're going to sell it for like $1 million plus. Yeah. We're gonna blow the roof off. Like, you're doing some crazy stuff there, and I guess, is that just like confidence that you're going into, or like that's just where you feel comfortable? Like, what made you move into that direction so quickly?
Part of it definitely is confidence. Like, I have the construction background, and actually, Garrett, who you also met, he's done infills before, and he's got a construction background too. So there's not really much that scares us. Yeah. Like, whatever we come across, like, doesn't really frighten me. Like, we've seen some pretty gnarly stuff where I'm like, oh, man, this sucks, but it's fixable. You know what I mean? Like, I've got the confidence in myself. Garrett has the confidence in himself, and we have the confidence in each other that we'll work it out.
Sorry, how do you decide how much money you need to make on each job?
We go based off of what our minimum, like, we've decided what our minimum income should be and needs to be per month. So if you have a team of people, and like, say for us, like, you need to sit down and be like, these are our financial goals, this is our requirements for each deal, take that number and then move it forward. So that's what we've done. Yeah, I like that model, because instead of just trying to figure out like, how can I make the most money possible, like, I just want to buy for as low as I can and sell for as high as I can, and like, there's no real goal other than just being rich. Yeah, that's an interesting model to me, and I feel like you said before, that's like chasing the money. Where I think you're coming from the standpoint, and I do this as well, is you set forth like, okay, this is the lifestyle that I'm living or feel comfortable living at. Yep. This is what I need to pay, like, my expenses, or to run like as a decent professional company. And I want to be flipping homes doing that. So this is kind of the margins that I have to make on each home. I also don't want to be known as like, because you and I both, like, we're out there buying houses cash. Like, we're putting that out there that we'll buy your house cash. But at the same time, we do have to get it undervalued. But we're not looking just to like rip people off. No. We're not looking just to go in and like lowball people for the sake of lowballing and then see what we can do. Like, okay, let's just paint it and sell it again because we bought it so cheap. It's more so like,
we need a bit more margin because we know our numbers. Like we're actually doing analysis on this project to be like,
exactly,
to make it this really cool finished product and sell to this certain family or rent to this certain person. I'm going to have to put in $100,000. Like I know some of your jobs are like 200 grand, whatever, like they get
times $300,000 we're putting into these jobs.
Exactly. And, you know, just like the margin of error it's tight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that, we're going out there just to like rip people off, get it as low as you can, sell it as high as you can, put the minimal into it. It's like having this vision of what we can do with this end product to get to a point of like, okay, well, we have to buy it at this price.
Exactly.
So it's an interesting way of thinking that I think really separates like the true like flippers out there who are like doing it for the love of it, and the other people who are just looking to like whatever, catch desperate people.
Yeah. I think also
lowball them.
Yeah, that if you go into a deal, like any deal, like any house on the market works for a flipper at a certain number. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think as long as you go into it being like, this is the number that works for us, like you don't have to sell to us, but this is what this house is worth to us.
Yeah.
We're trying to offer a fair price based on what we need this house at.
Yeah. Well, and you still have to make money at the end of the day. Like as much as you want to be a nice guy and for everyone to be happy, but like you're not a charity at the same time. So it's like such a fine line of, you know, making sure that you're not losing money on a job or making the margins too razor thin, but also, that you're not taking advantage of someone that just doesn't know. And I think that's a big part of like clean cut, like that I want to be standing for, is that if someone wants to sell their home and they come talk to us, that I can go in and actually say, this is what I think your house would sell in the open market. And here's what the comps are. So this is what we think the home is worth. This is the renovations I have to do if I were to buy this cash. So this is where, like you said, this is where my numbers work out to say that I can buy your house cash. It's not just like, what will you accept on this house?
Exactly.
It's here's how I can rationalize buying your house cash. And I just feel like, hey, choose. Like it's
up to them.
Balls in your hand. And usually the most money is made when you list on MLS, typically, because you said before, like it's just high competition. There's lots of eyes on the property. So you know, usually people are going to go the MLS route. But money is not always the main factor in a lot of these deals, like you said. And so if I do need to buy the home undervalued, let's say, typically we're paying like 90% of what the home is worth. So it's not like it's a total ripoff, but it's like, okay, for the convenience of being able to choose the day that you move, or leaving garbage behind, or having cash now, not paying the extra realtor fees, like there is a benefit to all of that. And then we need to see a discount on the home. And so in the past, I've actually had some people that I've dealt with where I go, they say, hey, we want to sell our house, or we've listed it before, it's not selling, whatever. And I say, okay, this is what I think we can get for it on MLS. Let's list it. Or here's what I could buy it for cash if I do these things to it. And I say, like, you're going to make more money listing it. And they're like, no, like, Nick, please buy my house cash. Like, you will make more money if we list it. No, I really, really, like, this house has bad memories. This house is a headache. I have it paid off cash or whatever. I have a low mortgage. I already have somewhere that I'm moving. I've already tried to list it. Like, there's so many reasons of why someone might just not want to go down that road again. And it's interesting to me that there still is like a benefit to just moving on from your house, and for someone like you or I to move in and do those renos. So I just don't want to be painted as like this evil guy going out in there just like kicking granny out of her home and, you know,
well, you're not
making $1 million. And there's people out there like that. But, you know, people talk about we buy houses cash, and you don't want to do that. Where, again, there's just like different people out there that you can deal with that are doing it ethically or not. What do you think of, because I know that you're pretty heavily involved. Like you're actually doing work on the job site.
Correct.
And there are some people out there that are flipping homes that they're just like totally removed. And it's like, hey, I'm going to buy this house and then I'm going to hire a general contractor just to do all the work. And then I'm going to sell it and make money. What do you think of that strategy? Do you think it works? Do you think it doesn't? Would you buy a house finished like that?
We've given this a lot of thought, and obviously like that is where we want to be moving towards, is like building our network of trusted contractors. But the amount of risk that's associated with that, just to be that hands off at the start before you have those relationships and before you have that trust, is just too high for me and the rest of the crew. It's like, you like at the start, you have to be hands-on, in my opinion. Otherwise, if you have no experience, like even now, like with the experience we have, like I'm not comfortable being 100% hands-off. And then like you and I talked about this at lunch the other day, you have to hop in here and there. Like, I don't think that's avoidable, right? Like you were saying before, like, well, landscaping has to get done and like I'm on this timeline, so I'm just going to go do it myself. Yeah. Which is fun. Sometimes it can be. Other times it's like, I don't want to do this, like, but I have to do it anyway. So to answer your question, it does work. I feel your margins are way less, like way less. And so you have to account for that as well.
For me personally, I just feel like, when I started, it was me and my business partner on the tools doing absolutely everything. Yeah. And margins are highest. There's less risk doing that. But then you want to start scaling. Exactly. Like you're saying. So now I want to just deliver design and get these people in here building the homes. And you try and scale. And I remember at one point we had 9 flips on the go at once, because I thought like just the more better. Like the first flip I ever did, it did extremely well. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I think I kind of lucked out on the purchase, and then also the timing in the market. Like the market was going up. I did a lot of the renos myself. And it made like close to $100,000, and I was like, this is so easy. Like I gotta just do this 10x. Right. And that's the way it's advertised out there. Like, you can do this once. If you can do it once, then you can do it a million times over. Exactly like you said it right at the start. I did this on my Highlands house. I can do this again. And then the next one, not so good. And that's exactly what happened to me. It's like the next one, everyone's like, this house is a home run. Like the realtor told me that. The inspector told me that. Some people wanted to like give me money to buy in because like, this is going to be fantastic. And I broke even on the job, and it took me a year and a half. Yeah. And it's like, no, that it's not going to be a home run every time, like you were saying. And I just feel like contractors, if you don't have that trust or that relationship, they will take you for a ride.
Of course. Or the experience as well.
Yeah. Like I just know, oh, you should do this. Well, why? Oh, they'll tell you some kind of construction something. It's like, well, it probably benefited them. It's probably easier to do or cheaper for them to do sometimes. And I think it's hard to hand over like your vision to someone else. Does that make sense?
100%.
So if I had this vision of like painting the Mona Lisa, and then I was like, can you paint this like lady standing like this?
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
It just wouldn't be the same in my opinion. Yeah. But if I have a vision for something and then I'm involved, it doesn't mean that I have to be hanging every piece of drywall or like doing everything start to finish. That's kind of where I found the balance in my business, where I need to be involved. I need to be actually like heavily involved, but maybe not painting, maybe not hanging drywall, because that's eating up a ton of my hours. But I still need to understand that. And that's what I would say, like my biggest piece of advice to people who want to start flipping homes is like, have a passion for it, dive into it. Yes, you want to make money, but it's not like, okay, I'm just going to buy a house and hire Nick or Brett to just go and do this project for me because I'm going to make money in the end. It's like, no, you have to understand it. You have to like have a vision for it. What are you trying to accomplish here?
Exactly.
And go after that. So I guess that being said, what would be your best piece of advice for an early flipper? Or if you could go back, like, let's say, I don't know, 10 years, what would you have told yourself?
I would say, like, you're never going to feel 100% ready. Like, just do it. Like, you're gonna make mistakes. You might fall flat on your face, but as long as you're willing to try to figure it out, you will. That because for me, I never felt like I was like 100. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna push it until I do this, or I'm just gonna push it until, and then that I feel I was just probably making excuses to myself, and I was like, finally, I was just like, I'm just doing it. Yeah. And then I don't know if your story was the same way.
Oh, I'm totally that way. I think I was just naive, right? It was like, oh, I can finish a basement. Oh, I can whatever, put a suite in a house, and I like didn't know what I was doing. It almost scares me more now. I don't know if you feel that way. Now that I know, like I had a plumber that I hired. He was really good. Hired him on the next job. He's like, hey, I need a $10,000 deposit for buying some materials, and I was just like, okay, like I trust you. I was just naive. Gave him the 10 grand. He moved to Mexico the next day. He was like gone.
Wow.
And stuff like that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. But since I didn't experience that prior,
how would
like,
you know?
I was like, oh no, like everything's going to be fine. So the first flip or the first renovation I did, I didn't really have those fears because I didn't really know that like those things happen. So now that I've kind of seen a lot more things, I think I'm more reserved now. But I also just know how to be more cautious, how to play it a little bit more.
So you had 9 jobs going on at once?
Yeah, like we were doing like one at a time just because like our hours were max and we were working like 14-hour days. Like it was nonstop.
And did you have kids at this point?
No, I was a single guy, so it was easy for me to just like commit to that and go hard after that. But there's just a point where you're like, we need to scale, like 10x it. And I could go get the jobs. But like you said, then you start hiring more people, you're babysitting individuals, you have to figure out your cash flow. You might skip a piece of, a design step here or there. Your timelines go out of whack. Like there's such a fine balance there that, doing one house doesn't mean that you can do 10.
Right.
And maybe you don't ever want to be doing 10 at a time.
Yeah.
Like the scaling part of it, or like the first house that I ever bought was a half duplex that was gutted because there was some kind of gas leak or oil leak from it was like a gas leak from the gas station that was behind the property. So Shell bought the home off these people because it like wasn't safe for them to stay there. So I like bought that off them. And then for some reason after I did the project, like I got it for a crazy good price. Whatever, start to finish, renovated it, made money, house prices were going up. It was all good. But it's stupid for me to think like I could repeat that. Like when is that house ever going to come up again? Does that make sense? Like I can't build a business off that.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily do this Pleasant View house. Like that's a one of a kind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like we said, every job is like completely different and completely unique, has its own, characteristics, its own set of problems, things that you need to change, things that need to stay. But
that's the fun of it. The other thing, we won't go too much longer, but I was thinking about this the other day too. Of like I guess the passion or the love of these houses, like the homes you flip are like works of art.
Thank you.
Like you have to appreciate all the little details that you put in, and people obviously do. The hard part is that, like on a logistics standpoint of selling that property, don't you kind of wish it was a piece of art? Like I'm looking at these NFTs selling online. It's like the weird whatever monkey that's selling for 2.4 million, or like we're talking about the Mona Lisa. What if someone says, hey, I'll buy your Pleasant View place for $2 million?
Yeah.
and the banks and the appraiser are like, oh, it's only worth $1 million. Well, to you, I guess, like, I guess that I understand that the banks have to cover their butts so that if you default on your mortgage, that they're not going to be left. They're not going to be left with that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a shame that I just had this before. Like, we did a house in Leduc, or we did our last one in Mill Woods, where I put it up for sale for more than what a lot of the homes in the area were selling for. But then, it's hard because I'm like, well, there's nothing that is.
There's no comp for it.
Yeah, it's its own home.
Yeah.
So how do you compare that to?
So we ran into that with our Winchester project as well. It's like there was no comps. That was the most expensive house to ever sell in Terrace Heights.
Really?
Yes. And so,
what a cool record! Like, what a cool thing to say you did. But at the same time, most investors would be like, "Well, you don't want the nicest home in an area."
Exactly. And so that
so you want me to make it crappier?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want me to do such a good job? I don't know.
You don't want a beautiful home here? So, yeah, when that happened, I was like, from everything I had read and listened to, people were like, never be the most expensive house to sell in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I was like you said, like, why would I put that limitation on myself? Like, I've got confidence in what I do.
Yeah.
And my finishings and my end product. And it's not in a junk neighborhood. Like, it was on, it is one of the most beautiful streets. Like, it is the most beautiful street in Terrace Heights.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is where I see value. This is where I see that number being for our sale price. And we sold it for it.
Yeah.
Right?
See, and I guess that's the, like, silver lining.
Yeah. But that could have went sideways. Like,
totally. But
right?
You were just willing to risk it. You're like, I trust in myself and I'm going to put out a good product. And there was demand for it. So you made it work. And same with me. Like, I've never had a house just not sell. I think I made the mistake. Like, the second flip I ever did was in Fort Saskatchewan. It was like a terrible corner lot house. And I just bought it because it was cheap.
Yeah.
I'm sure that your mindset was probably there when you were starting to flip too. It's like, I was like looking in Calder. I'm like looking at just like the cheapest houses because I have to buy cheap and then make it nice. It's like, okay, well, you have to have some sense of like someone who's going to spend whatever, 500,000, 6, 7, 8, whatever plus has to be in somewhat of an area that will allow that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I think, like you're saying, you're doing it in Terrace Heights. Like, you're doing it in still good neighborhoods, but you are pushing the boundary of that price.
We are.
But there's a realtor who listed a home for $1 a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
It was on the news and stuff. It's like, realtor lists a house for $1, and there's signs is like, buy this house for $1. It wasn't buy this house, but it was like, house for sale for $1. And I think that's a cool analogy. Maybe not analogy, but like strategy. Because like, a realtor definitely will advertise the property and get it on MLS and help you with negotiating. But at the end of the day, like you were saying, people just see what you're building and they're drawn to that, and they get emotional when they walk through that home. It brings out some emotion where they're like, I need to buy this.
Yeah.
And then they come up with what that value is. And I think it's an interesting concept of like, I think if you're passionate enough and like have a good enough design, you could list a house for $1 and probably get more than what you're even expecting, because enough people are going to come look at that house. It'll cause a bidding war or whatever, but it's like people are just going to decide what that
it's worth.
Home is worth, and hopefully you get enough eyes on it that it's going to really cause like an emotional pull on them. And it's just like selling art, like all these Banksy's art. I don't know if you follow any art stuff, but they'll have these auctions and they sell for ridiculous amounts of money, just because in that moment it's like, what does that person think it's worth?
Yeah, exactly.
Might be doing circles here. I think we'll leave it at that if you're cool.
Of course.
And I'll say that, I wanted to set this up again just to connect with people out there. If you have questions, comments, reach out, set up a Zoom call with me, come to my office. I'd love to chat with you further. This is Brett Finnie from Outline Homes, And MothaFlippas is his tagline on Instagram. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me, man.
And
awesome.
I can't wait to see your finished product in Pleasant View right away.
Absolutely.
Right on.